I do. I'm not saying this will work for you. Picture where you're sitting. Obviously, you guys are in your own seats, right? But you picture exactly where you're sitting at the same time, recalling what I said or what you saw on the thing. So I don't want you to look at your notes. But do you remember a visual on the top? What did it say? It was in color, actually. Usually you don't.
Oh,
Stock market crashes, right? Something like that. Okay. And then below it there was a chart. Do you remember a chart? There was a chart. It was rectangular, and there were two names on there. What names were they? All right, Hoover and Smith. So now you know who we're talking about. What am I talking about? What happened in 1928? And why? What happened? Okay, 1928, Hoover got elected. Why? Sam.
Because of the war, their economy was doing well, and they're continuing with the Republicans.
Okay, so who was the Republican before Hoover?
Harding.
No. Coolidge. Remember the whole KKK? That's why I wrote it on there, right? Because you remember that stuff? So just remember sloppy writing that I had on there earlier, right? Okay, so you got Calvin Coolidge. He's in between Harding and Hoover, okay? All Republicans. Economy doing well?
No. No.
Yeah.
Yes, economy is doing well there in the 1920s, right? However, we're going to get to the point in a minute why it wasn't. Remember, I said roaring 20s, everybody's partying, having a good time, whatever. But those undercurrents that I explained yesterday, which you're going to re-explain today, will be only part of why the stock market and, well, the stock market's not the single reason that we had the Great Depression. It was like the culminating event. It was the immediate event. You know, it's like, you know, the shooting of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in World War I. Okay, so Alfred E. Smith is a Democrat. So why didn't people like Alfred E. Smith? He was Irish and Catholic, and we talked about that whole Protestant Catholic thing, right? And so Hoover, and also Hoover proved himself in World War I. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, because I didn't mention it, but it was in your notes. He was the guy that was responsible for your meatless, wheatless Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and the whole organization of rationing during World War I. You know, the posters, the propaganda posters, you know, the victory gardens. Hoover. So he was well known for that. And, I mean, so he didn't just become president because he was Protestant, obviously, and Republican. Okay. Who wants to explain what happened with the farmers? So everybody's partying, going to, you know, not everybody, but, you know, speakeasies, bootlegging, all that kind of stuff's going on. The economy's doing really well, actually. But there was those undercurrents of things going on. What happened?
They purchased a lot of land to feed all the soldiers, but
Who did?
farmers.
Farmers. Okay, let's be specific. So farmers purchased land and what?
And after the war, they didn't need to feed all the soldiers. The soldiers came back, so they produced more food than they could sell, which would raise the price of food.
Okay. All right. Did you guys hear that? Sam?
Same with the steel makers. They made like bigger factories and produced more to supply for guns. And then after the war, they didn't need guns or bullets. So.
Okay. And that's going to create, you know, a lot of workers during the war, but after the war, not so many are needed, right? Okay. So you've got this farming crisis. Now the farming crisis, and even in that case with the railroads and so forth, it's going to lead to other things. So as you said, you know, overproduction led to, you know, falling of prices and stuff like that. But in a bigger sense, how did that affect the economic system? Yeah.
People stopped buying as much for circulating money.
We'll get to that later, but I'm talking specifically farmers here. What did they lose?
Their land.
They lost their land. How did they get the land in the beginning?
Mortgage.
They had a mortgage. So when you can't pay your mortgage, what does the bank do? They take it away. It's called foreclosure, right? So they lost it. Now, does a bank want a piece of land just sitting there doing nothing? No, they're not land people. They're banks. They loan money. They want you to pay them back, right? When that doesn't happen, they come in and they take it. They take it back. And so that caused huge problems because when you're looking at banks, okay, I want you to think of banks let's just say this cart, well it does, it has 4 wheels, but it doesn't have legs per se. But if it had 4 legs and I kicked 2 of them out, what would happen to my projector? It would fall over, be very unstable, right? Could it stand on 2 legs? No. And what's happening in the 1920s is the banks are going to become unstable. This happened in 2007 and 8 too, because of things that the industries were doing that weren't necessarily, well, legal. I mean, they were kind of, but they were allowed to happen. And because of that, the system collapsed. Okay, but you have to put all those things into, I can't think of it. Okay, so into consideration. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to discuss how another area. So you got the farmers, you've got the big companies going out of business and stuff like that. It's just like in 2007 when the big Detroit. I've talked to you this before, right? A lot of people work for the car industry, yeah? And you might even know some of them. A lot of them got laid off. Some got let go. That means that they don't get their jobs back. And that affected Detroit and Michigan big time. Because those 3 companies are on the Dow Jones Industrial Index. Okay, and what that means is there's industrial stocks and there's the NASDAQ. Does anyone know what the NASDAQ is? Those are the tech stocks, so your Amazon, you know, your Apple and
Like electronic?
yeah, electronic stuff, you know what I mean? Okay, so there's different indexes, and when a company employs a lot of people, if they're affected, so we look at the top 30 companies, the Dow Jones, and we can tell the health of the United States economy by looking at those companies, because they employ a lot of people. Does that make sense? So, you know, it's an index, okay? All right. So let's talk about housing. So we were just talking about farms and stuff like that, but let's talk about housing. Everything is connected to what I call new builds. In this case, it's called housing starts, whatever you want to call it, okay? Now, how many people are familiar with all the big houses north of M59, like New Baltimore, I think it's Clinton Township, I don't even know all the names, but okay, you guys, are you familiar? So, when I was younger, and I hate to, you know, age myself here, there's a mall up there called Lakeside. Anybody ever been there? Okay, so that used to be like really far away for us, and we would drive up there and hang out. You guys hang out in the house or the malls? We used to do that. I don't know. We had, you know, that's what we do for fun. Anyway, we'd go up there, and there would be nothing north of M59. It was all like farmland and stuff, you know. And around 2000, a little bit after that, they started like building these crazy big houses out there. And the problem was, and the economy was really good after the 1990s. It was really good, okay? The real estate people started selling houses to people for more than they could afford. So let's say I could afford $100,000. And you look at my paycheck, whatever, I can afford $100,000. But they would sell me a $150,000 house. So I'm getting this huge house, really nice, you know, can't really furnish it, you know, but I'm getting this huge house, that's awesome. And then all of a sudden the economy tanks. And I can't really afford my mortgage anymore. What happens?
They take it away.
Okay, they're gonna, again, they're gonna take it away because I can't afford it. But just like in the 1920s, banks don't want houses just sitting there, you know? So they end up losing money. Okay, if they have too many houses, then the bank goes down because their job's to loan money. So, let's talk about houses. And we're talking about new construction. Not ones that are already out there, they're being fixed from the ground up. How many different kinds of people does it take approximately to build a house? Now, I want you to answer by raising your hand, and we'll go through a bunch of them. I'll give you one, a carpenter. Plumber. Electrician. Architect. Come on, think. You guys all live in houses or something like that, right? Well, the workers, construction workers that are just general contractors. Okay, what else? We got the electricians. Painters. Well, think of your houses. Well, the water is, that's the plumbers kind of, yeah.
Carpet makers?
Carpet people. If you have carpet in your house, absolutely. Carpet people. I don't know what you call them. Carpet installers. Yeah.
Those people that make the stuff that goes over wood so it doesn't rot away.
All right. So if you have hardwood, you're gonna have your floor people, which is separate from the carpet people. Okay. You've got window people. You've got roofing people. You've got cement people. You've got people that are doing the bricks, depending on what kind. I mean, you've got like 30 different kinds of people that are going to be working on your house, right? Okay, how long does it take to make a house? Try it. Just guess.
5 months.
Okay, 5 months is a good. That's a good one. It depends how big the house is, right? If it's cookie cutter or not. So let's say it takes 5 months. So all 28 people. Let's say it's 28 people. They're working on a house for 5 months. They're making money, right? Okay, keep that in mind. Now, in order to make the house, what do you have to have? You gotta have the money. You're gonna get that from the bank. They gotta have materials. What kind of materials? You gotta have wood. You gotta have nails. You gotta have cement. You gotta have all the materials that go along. And those are separate businesses. So you got the 28 people that are going out to get that stuff from somebody else, correct? If they're not going out to get that, what happens? So let's just say that people aren't building houses because the economy's not good. All right? What happens to those 28 people?
Unemployed.
They're unemployed. Are they going out and spending money? What did I tell you about circulation? It's healthy for the economy, right? You have to buy things at the stores and so forth to circulate the money. It's got to be passed around to everybody, okay? Now, they're not going and buying things because they don't have money anymore because they're not working. What happens to the people at Kmart, Myers, and wherever else?
Their business go down.
They're going to go down, they're going to close, and those people are going to be out of business. What happens to the people that, if we're not building the house, we've got the lumber people, we've got the cement people, what happens to those guys?
Unemployed.
They might have to close down too because they're not getting any business. It's the domino effect. See how that works? And so, and that's exactly what happens every time. Okay, 1893, 2007, and the 1920s. Okay, and our stock market too dipped big time. Actually, if you look at the Iraq War and all that stuff too, you can factor that in as well. Okay, so basically, no job, no money, no shopping, major retails go out of business, and everybody else does too. Now, thank God, things are starting to come back up. It's cyclical, don't I always tell you that? History does what? It does. If you read it carefully, it repeats itself every time. We're not always going to be in bad times. You know, you gotta plan right, you know? Okay, now, there's several things that are going to happen also at the same time. So, like I said, you've got, you know, the Ku Klux Klan's doing their thing. You got organized crime because of Prohibition. You've got the immigrants and nativism, Harlem Renaissance, Lost Generation. All these things are going on at the same time, okay? And farmers are foreclosing, you know? And people start really getting into the stock market, okay? So, here's the thing. Nowadays, just about everybody, if you want to have some kind of retirement, you got to sock away some money. By the way, I recommend you do that starting now. I know you don't want to, but you'd be the smartest person in the world if you did. If you put away $25 a week right now until you're like 50, you'd be a millionaire. Yeah. Okay, so people started living on credit. Now we all know that. How do we live on credit? What do I have in my pocket?
Credit card.
Yeah, plastic. We got the credit cards, all right? So easy to spend, isn't it? Oh, I don't have the money. Oh, I got a credit card. What's the problem with credit cards?
Interest.
High interest. So, you know, you might buy something for $5,000, but it might take you 10 years to pay off, and you might think, oh my God, that's a good deal, man, $5,000. But if you pay it over 10 years, you're paying $7,000 or $8,000. Yeah. See, people don't really think about that because they're impulsive buyers. So they started buying on credit. They didn't have credit cards, but credit started in the 1920s. Now I'm going to relate that to something else in a minute. But I'm going to read you something first. Uneven distribution of wealth. That's going on right now too. Not good. Let me explain it. You guys then help me out because I've said this earlier. America faced serious problems in the years leading up to 1929. The unequal distribution of wealth was one, gentlemen. Too many people in the United States had only a little money, and too few had a lot. The richest 1% of Americans had 14.5% of the nation's annual income. These wealthy few invested their money in stocks or placed it in savings accounts. Not enough of the national income went to farmers or workers who would have bought consumer goods and thereby kept the money in circulation. So let's say there's 100 people in the United States. Okay? One of those people owns 15% of all the money. So there's a small number of rich people, and there's a large number of people that don't have as much money. And so, if I'm so rich that I got my 40,000 square foot house, and I got my car, and I got like a TV, whatever, right? I can only spend so much. So then I'm going to take that other money, and I'm going to put it in the bank. Now, if I put it in the bank, it's just sitting there, right? Is it circulating amongst us?
No.
Okay. We're the ones that tend to do that. Okay. And if I put my money in stocks, is it circulating? No. It's not. Circulation means you have to be buying stuff. Okay. So that money's being held kind of ransom in a way, you know. And so because it's not circulating, and that's a good chunk of the money that we all have, because we're all sharing 100%, right? It's going to be bad for the economy. Okay? So, okay, now, let's talk about stocks. By the way, that's kind of happening right now as well. There's a big disparity between the rich and the poor, and it's becoming wider. The middle class is now shrinking, if you understand. You have to have a strong middle class to have a strong economy and country. We need to keep that somehow. Okay. All right, now, people started buying stocks. Now, the rich people were always buying stocks. They were investing in whatever, okay? They knew how to manage their money. Well, all of a sudden, everybody else started wanting to get into stocks too, because the stock market just kept going up. And if you see the stock market continually going up and you see people making money, don't you want to be in on that? How many people are gamblers in here? Good. None of you raised your hands. Okay. Well, to be honest with you, if you go to the casino and you play, that's a gamble. If you put your money in stocks, it's a gamble. You don't know. You're not guaranteed to get that money back. I'll give you an example. I have friends that retired several years ago from Centerland, and they were putting money away for years. They had hundreds of thousands of dollars saved up, you know, in retirement, you know, because of stocks and bonds and stuff. And when all that mess happened, because people weren't doing the right thing, you know, in the real estate business and so forth, and the banks went down, some of these people lost, you know, a couple $100,000 in their retirement, and now they're working. Now you save up to retire, right, so you can relax, and you know now they're having to work because, you know, what happened. But it's a risk, you know what I mean? All right, so. So people were buying stocks. So all of a sudden, normal people started getting into the stock market. So let's say that we're just regular working class people. We go to work, we work hard, but we don't make a lot. We got a little left over, we might put a little in the bank. But how many of us are always watching TV and there's some kind of get-rich-quick scheme on there that looks really good, and we're like, I got to do that, man. I want to make me some money. Well, people started getting into the stock market. You got to remember, they didn't have as much to lose, or they had more to lose than the rich people, right? Because if I'm rich and I have a bunch of money I can play with, it's okay if I lose it because I got all this other money. But if I don't have a lot of money and I have just a little bit of money and I'm putting it in the stock market, and I lose it, is it going to affect me? Big time. So one of the things that they would do back then, they do this now technically as well, it's called speculation. What does it mean to speculate? Anybody? If I speculate on something, I'm guessing that something's going to do something else. In this particular case, I'm speculating. Who wants to be my people today? Gershom, you my person. Think of an awesome product. Come on, something really good, man. Quick. On the spot.
Rocket shoes, I don't know.
Rocket shoes, man. You put these shoes on, you fly the moon. Woo! All right. So Gershom comes up with some rocket shoes, and I'm watching his company. I'm like, man, those are some cool shoes. I get to go to the moon. And so I'm an investor. Let's say I'm an investor. I'm saying, man, I'm looking at Gershom. I'm like, man, nobody's gonna beat that. That's the coolest thing I've seen in 10 years. We should all buy his stock, because if we buy his stock, it's gonna go. His company is gonna explode, and we're all gonna be able to wear these moon shoes or whatever they're called, okay, rocket shoes. So if I say, if you know I'm a good investor, and I say that his shoes are going to do really well, or his company is going to do well, what are you guys all going to want to do? You're going to want to invest in it, right? So I'm speculating. Now, once he launches the shoes, I put them on and it goes, and it was a dud. Is it guaranteed that his shoes, once they actually go to market, are going to be going to the moon? No. So speculation was a problem during this time period. All right. So buying stocks and bonds in the chance of making profits. Okay. Okay. Buying on margin. Here's another one. Buying on margin. So this is confusing. So hear me out. Who's my banker? Tanvir. Okay, Tanvir's my banker. Okay, so, and I know him personally. We're friends. And I'm one of those working class guys, right? And everybody's talking, everyone's speculating about Gershom's shoes, and I want to buy his stock. But I've never really bought stock before, but I know his stock's going to go up. So I go, I don't have the money. I'm just a working guy, right? And I go to Tanvir, I'm like, listen, man, I need $100. He's like, what? He's like, what do you need $100 for? I'm like, well, you know, I mean, I know this shoe thing, and there's some stocks, and I want to buy them. And at the time, there were no regulations on this, because, you know, he makes money if he lends money to me. Okay, so he's going to lend me the money, and I'm going to use the money to buy stock in his company. Are you guys with me? Now, if I do this, and all you other people besides Tanvir do the same thing, what's going to happen to his stock price? It's going to go up. Why? Because everybody's buying it, right? Because there's a value in it. Is it a real value, though, if I borrowed the money to do it? No. It's a false value. So if it's really worth 10, but it's going up to 15 because everyone's buying it because they're buying on margin, it's a false reading. So in the 1920s, as stocks were going up, it wasn't real. In fact, when you look at all this stuff, really, in reality, it's not all real anyway. It's just ideas kind of moving around and so forth, you know? So that's buying on margin, okay? Now I need two people. Let's see here. Who wants to be my people? Really? Come on, give me two people. Come on, Aaron. You're right. You're as good at it. You and come here, Farrar. All right, I'll be right back.
I'll be games.
All right, you go be the games.
It was good. I didn't have anything to do, so.
You were like, and then you were like, and then the first time you like woke up and you were like, yeah, and then like just now you
I just have to sit here and wait for everything to stop.
And then you kept nodding your head, it was funny.
Whatever is happening tomorrow, so.
Yeah, Mr. Bellos, yeah.
Do you know how many people actually leave a supermarket ready to knowing what they're doing? Morning sunshine.
You go.
They're just fighting a war all day.
We're about to go up again, right?
I want fast money. I don't want to wait.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Listen.
They keep messing with Hunger Games.
How many of you guys want to make money? Come on, raise your hand. Everybody wants to make money. Don't put your hands down. You can't fool me. Now, you guys know that we're super successful people. We're investors. We've always invested and so forth. And you know what? We normally don't do this. We have our own friends, but we I don't know, for some reason, for altruistic reasons, we want you in on this because we want everybody to make money in this. And so we recently just bought a ton of stock. In Apple came out with this new technology that Tarak's going to tell you about. I mean, you got to get it. Go ahead.
Okay, it's a new iPhone that can read your mind. If you just think about it, it can tell you like.
I mean, this thing can read your mind. I mean, it's kind of scary. I don't know if you want to read your own mind or whatever, but I mean, isn't that awesome?
Amazing.
I mean, we got in on it, right? I mean, we bought tons of shares. So listen, not everybody knows about this. But if you guys, we're not telling everybody either. If you guys buy right now, you have an opportunity to make money too. Just the other day, we bought in, it was at 10, and then it went up to 12, and now it's at 14. If you get in, we can guarantee that it's going to go up to 20. How many people are in? And you are going to raise your hands. Because you want to make some money. Yes.
Why would you want to read your own mind, though?
Well, he might have misspoke on that. It can also read your mind, which I don't know if you guys would want to do, but anyway, no. So, it's going to read mine. This phone is awesome. It's like the rocket shoes, but it works. Okay, so how many people are in? All right, excellent. We got some people. Now, you guys are going to go out and buy stock. What's going to happen to the price?
It's going to go up.
It's going to go up, right? But see, what you didn't know was that we all discussed out in the hall. We said, listen, when it gets to 20, we're going to bail and we're going to sell all of our stocks when it gets to 20 because we bought it at 12 and we're going to make $8 a share when all you suckers, buy the stock. We're going to unload it, and guess who's going to be fitting the bill? Y'all. And we're going to go, yay. Okay. So, all right, give these guys a round of applause.
We sell tickets.
What's that?
We sell tickets.
Yeah, you could sell. You could, if you're smart, you get out. So that's called stock pool. All right. Now, all of these things together. What time we get out here today? 55. Okay. So all of these things together are going to lead to the crash. Okay. You got to understand something. We always think that the stock market crash is the only reason that the Great Depression started. Unequal distribution of wealth, the farmers' problems. The crash is the immediate event. Like in World War I, what was the immediate event in World War I? Assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, right? And that's what this is. And now it's going to happen. So stocks going up, 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 up. And we get to October, and there are experts in the economics area going, everybody, we need to step back. It's going to crash. And nobody's listening. Like, no, man, it's great. Everything's good. Everything, we're all good. Okay? Well, it can only go up so high, right? Take a balloon, fill it up, you keep blowing out, what's going to happen? It's going to pop, right? So, that's what happened. It could not exist anymore in the state that it was going. I'll show you guys PowerPoint tomorrow. But it went up on Thursday, and it was the Thursday before it actually collapsed, but Thursday before the stock market crashed. Crashed twice. Crashed on Thursday, and what happened was everybody started panicking. So all of us that aren't normally in the stocks, that panic because all of our life savings is in there, what are we going to do? We're going to go sell. What happens to stock prices? They're going to go down. Now when they go down, what continues to happen? People go in and try to at least salvage some of their money, right? And they pull out. What keeps happening? It keeps going down, down, down. So then you got your JP Morgans and your super rich people. They're like, we got to stop this panic from going on because otherwise the thing's going to crash. So they go in and they buy tons of shares to bring the panic to I guess a manageable level. So it goes down and it goes up and it kind of levels out for a couple days, and then the following Tuesday it goes down to zero. And it crashes and all of the stocks are worth, this just, I mean, imagine that, right? So, everything's worth nothing. And so, anyway, so people continued to sell, panic stricken, people started taking their money out of the banks. And by the way, I'm going to tell you a personal story here. Let me finish this real quick. So they went in, they tried to save it, but then on Black Tuesday, it hit rock bottom, the Great Depression then began. Okay? Now my grandfather, on my father's side, my papu, he owned 5 restaurants. Did I ever tell you this story? No. Okay. So, I think I have some time. So my grandfather, he came over on a boat when he was 11. Okay, I was going to tell you this when we did immigration, but I just never got around to it. So he came over on boat when he was 11. You know, worked his way up through restaurants and stuff like that. Didn't speak a lick of English, you know, learned it while he was here. And worked really hard. So hard that he got to a point where he owned like 5 different kinds of businesses. He owned a waffle shop. Okay, and this is all down in Detroit. He owned a penny arcade, which is like a video, you know, like for you guys it'd be like Chuck E. Cheese or something like that, you know what I mean? You know.
Yeah.
Okay? He also owned, this is kind of the coolest one I know, he was part owner of the gym that Joe Louis originally trained in. You guys know who Joe Louis is?
Yeah.
You know, with the big fist down, that's right? Okay? So he owned all this stuff, and he owned a couple restaurants, and, you know, when the stock market crashed, they had a car. So he didn't drive, but they had a car, a driver, and, I mean, they were wealthy. I mean, I would be like a wealthy person right now if the stock market hadn't done what it did. So somebody persuaded him to put all of his money in the bank. And when this happened, people went to the banks because they started freaking out about the banks too, about the banks faltering. And so the way it worked back then was you would put your money in the bank and they would then take your money and loan it out. That's how a bank works. So they take your money and it's there, right? But it's not physically there all the time. So it might say you have $100,000 in there, but they don't hold all $100,000 of your money there. They lend it out so people can buy houses and stuff like that, and that's how they make their money. And so back then, though, there was no insurance. So they basically, once people started panicking, they went to the bank to get their money out. And so we're all in line, okay? I'm my grandfather. I'm in the back of the line. Now, banks only hold a certain amount of money. So if they're supposed to, you know, if everybody in the bank has $1 million worth of savings, they might only have $50,000 in the bank. Like actual money there. Did you know that? So everybody got in line to get their money. And when the $50,000 was gone, the people that were behind those people didn't get their money. My grandfather was one of them. And when we get to the Depression, I'll tell you how he then started working for one of the programs that FDR created. Okay? So, personal story there, connection to history. Okay? So does that make sense? So the banks folded because they didn't have any money, because the people didn't have any confidence in the banking system anymore. Who's going to go put their money in the bank when all this stuff's going on? I will tell you later how we fixed it, okay? But not today. Any questions? Yes?
AP study book?
You can go ahead and turn it off.